Hello everyone, welcome to Satsang. Those of you who are continuing to hang out after the retreat, welcome back. So good to see you. It's very, I just finished up a 3-day retreat. It was just beautiful, beautiful experience with beautiful beings, enjoying a beautiful time together, exploring in depth who we really are. And it's always really a joy for me because I get to see people. We do it not like this, which is just a broadcast with chatting. It's on Zoom. People are there. We can interact. I can probe and dig a little bit deeper, which is extremely gratifying. And I get to actually have some interaction with people and not just the text, which is really valuable. Oh, it's meaningful to me. I mean, it's, especially in these days where there's not much contact anywhere, to be able to be in a setting where I can actually interact and get to know people. A nice safe place too, where people can really reveal themselves and not hide, not have to hide. That's, boy, there's just so much guilt and shame that gets heaped upon us. It's universally true. I mean, it's the foundation of the Abrahamic religions. I mean, you were guilty, right? The curse of Adam and Eve. So it's actually intrinsic to it, and we carry that around without even really knowing it, trying to compensate for it, trying to be somebody that's worthy of being loved, right? That can actually finally pay whatever penalty it is I have to pay for the horrible thing I must have done to be so guilty. Right? But it's actually deeper than that. And this is the difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is remorse or regret, or that feeling about doing something wrong. Right? Shame is an existential feeling of you're wrong, I am wrong. I am essentially, I'm the problem. It's nothing I can correct. It's simply what I am. It's not what I should be. And so there's this existential angst, existential crisis that takes place in all of us because we all received that shaming. It's just inherent in the culture. It's really inherent in being in the culture. This was not the case in what we call primitive cultures, Native American and Aboriginal cultures. They did not have this they did not raise children through the use of guilt and shame. They were harmonized with nature. They were enjoyed. Oops, I think you can still hear me, but my camera left for a second. And there was a clear path for them to get into adulthood, right? Taking on their role as a man or a woman. There wasn't shaming. It was just educating, helping, initiating. Right? And so we all carry around this intrinsic shame that has been built in right from the get-go into the culture. The only remedy for it, the only lasting remedy for it, is to discover who you actually are and your original innocence. It can be subordinated and eventually dissolved through genuine self-understanding. Otherwise, we will be fighting it. We'll be trying to visualize our stuff. We'll be compensating. We're trying to accomplish things, acquire things, be very, very successful. Learn a bunch of stuff, have a bunch of letters after our name, and the like. And that won't do it. It'll be a compensation. The underlying energy of shame is still there, even if it doesn't touch the conscious part of us. Just patting ourselves on the back about stuff, feeling good about myself, or getting self-esteem won't work until you actually know who you are and discover that original innocence. What do I mean by the original innocence? You may have heard me use that phrase many, many, many times. What I mean by that is prior to any of the conditioning, prior to any of the stuff that you learned, including your name, right? Including your, I have this thing blanking out on me. Your name, your age, your gender, all of the stuff that gets imposed on us and expectations. Prior to all of that, you are just pure innocence, pure undifferentiated consciousness. There's no me or you. There's no distinction between anything. Everything is me, nothing is me. There's no me. There's no sense of that. It's pure innocence. Everything you do is natural. Everything you do is unpretentious. Everything you do is 100% you. This is the real you, the original innocent you. Now what happens over time is this real innocent you showing up in the environment in which you were raised, and we all got different environments from different cultures and the like. Certain parts of me, my unpretentious, completely natural self, were acceptable and allowed, and other parts were unacceptable and they were disallowed. Now, of course, it's you, right? You can't just get rid of you, right? An attribute of you is an attribute of you, and there's nothing you can do about it. But if it's not acceptable, the schism inside takes place, and we become ashamed of who we are. That's what shame is. It isn't I did something bad. It's I am bad. There's something essentially wrong with me. Prior to that, there's no sense of that whatsoever. That's your original innocence. But your original innocence couldn't possibly fully express itself in that environment, and so it got hindered, it got compressed. But just because it couldn't express itself doesn't mean it's not still there. Just because it's been disallowed doesn't mean it's been destroyed, doesn't mean it's been lost. It's just been sent to the basement. It has no vehicle for expression. And over time, you even forget that it's there. You become convinced that you are this person that has been created in order to interface with your family and the culture and all the rest of it. But that you isn't you. That's a very limited, constricted version of you. But that original innocence is still here. This was the great insight I had at 19 years old that saved my life. Because I thought I had just ruined myself. I thought I'd just completely destroyed it and I didn't deserve to live. And then I was shown this original innocence. This part that had never actually been touched. Not even dusted. It remained absolutely, purely what it was right from the get-go. And then became the spiritual journey of rediscovering and liberating that original innocence. And this is what I've spent the rest of my life doing, having to learn how to do that, how to liberate it. It's like I knew absolutely nothing. And then eventually how to help others do it, how to show others how to do it, how to show others that you are in fact already everything you've really been seeking. It's all there. You don't have to get it out there. You can't get it out there. Everything out here will be just really a shallow, cheap substitute for the genuine article, which is in you, but simply inaccessible right now. Inaccessible because of our beliefs, our conditioning, our assumptions, our habit patterns, all of the things that we accumulated over time to keep us conforming to the environment. Spiritual awakening is the ultimate act of rebellion. It is revolutionary because it completely it puts the entire cultural framework in its place. The culture of the society is here to serve me, not the other way around. We serve each other, and the way in which we serve each other makes the culture. It isn't a bunch of rules we have to conform to. And any culture that doesn't acknowledge the absolute infinite value of every single individual but seeks to try to squash that out and replace it with some cultural robot is illegitimate. It is the sin against the Holy Spirit. So with that in mind, how do you actually get through the shame? Well, if my words resonate with you, that sense, oh my goodness, it feels true. There is still something alive inside of me. There is still something that is seeking liberation. It hasn't been completely cut out of me. I haven't become a total cog in the wheel. That recognition is the awakening. And that recognition is actually the original innocence itself, recognizing itself. It isn't you recognizing original innocence as if it was somebody else. That original innocence is your real nature. And it's your real nature that recognizes the truth when it hears it. That recognition alone is enough to start these wheels turning, which they have. If they hadn't, none of you would be here. There's plenty of other things you could do at this particular time on a Sunday. But you've chosen to be here because you know what I'm saying is true. And it's not true because I'm saying it. I, like you, saw a truth that was true whether I believed it or not, and believed it, followed it, did what it told me to do, and it rewarded me with understanding and compassion and love and freedom and understanding, and given me the great gift of being able to articulate it well enough that I can share it with all you. Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So welcome again to Satsang, your own personal communion with the truth of your being. Roberto, hello Roberta, great retreat. Thank you a lot for that. You're so welcome, dear friend. Rosario, hello from Madrid. Penny, hello Penny, of course, can't get enough of seafood. What a lovely family. There's Ava in Poland, who's also in the retreat. A lot of people came over from the retreat. Just we've already had a ton of me. It's not really me. It's a ton of the inquiry, and you can't get enough of the inquiry. Namaste, dear G. Thank you for the great retreat. Thank you. You're here guiding us in such a way, such a beautiful way for me. Absolutely perfect way. What a grace it is to be in your Sangha. Thank you, Ava. Thank you so much. Crispin, hi everyone from Switzerland. Beautiful Switzerland. Liza, hello Liza. Jay, hello G and everyone. Thank you for the great retreat till the last day. I'll be a part of this satsang. Me too, until the last day. And I got a nice heart from Eileen, or is it Elaine? I think it's Elaine, or Eileen. And there he is, the awakened INFJ. And Yanis, hello Yanis. Thank you so much for the extraordinary retreat tonight. You're so welcome, Yanis. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All my students in Europe. Oh, I can't wait till COVID is over and I can come do some live events in Europe. Of course, if I get there, I won't want to leave. Hello, Truth Loops. Love you, G. I love you too. I love that name. Jonas, my teacher. Jonas. Wonderful. John Watson, awaiting connection on Zoom. What? The retreat ended about an hour ago. What happened? Maybe the time zone thing, because you guys pushed the clocks ahead. I tried to explain it all. But Fiona, also in Greece. Oh, I didn't know that. Hi, Fiona, again. Robert Dosa, who is in Romania, I believe. Patricia, so much in love in my heart for all gathered here today. Special love to you, dear G. My deepest thanks and gratitude in honor of attending your retreat. I am in heaven. Beautiful. Yes, yes you are. Heron in Holland. Hello, Heron. Good to see you. Chrissy Chukol, Fiona Takanas, a little Greek there. How's the weather? Now I am excited for Sundays, says Corey, Spokane, Washington. Ah, a neighbor, not a close neighbor. And Chrissy is in Ontario. Hello to you. Tatiana, so good to see you. And Truth says hello to Truth Lips. Innocence is golden. It is indeed. And it's your nature. Hani in Iraq. Oh, wonderful. I love it. Sound is too low. You want me to push the sound up a bit? How's that? I will push it a bit yet. Make the adjustments. I have to make the adjustments. Zoom actually comes out louder, and on this system, StreamYard, it does seem to come out softer. So I am pushing it a bit. That should be better. Let me know though. Thank you. Mary Sykes, hello G and everyone. Hello Mary, hello Rohan, thanks for being there for us. I love it. Hey GP and everyone, thank both of us, both for such a wonderful retreat. We're deeply touched by the profound nature of these satsangs and retreats, and to share this with like-minded beautiful souls. Amen. Amen. It's so good. I feel the energy of you too, and it really, it's wonderful. Let's see. Crispin, where'd you go, Crispin? Your explanation of guilt and shame coming from the Catholic Church makes perfect sense, and also might explain the behavior of our ancestors, which they unconsciously passed on. Yeah, it does. I mean, this is the history of the West, right? The great inheritance was the Roman Catholic Church, the Universal Church of Rome, because it had conquered all of Europe. For the most part, right? Before it finally collapsed. And the Catholic Church, the Constantine, they gathered it all together. They needed to have a God-man. They needed to have somebody to be worshipped. Christ, who, there's evidence that he actually existed. And my personal feeling is that he did. It's not overwhelming, right? That he did. And it's certainly none of the actual scriptural texts relating to his life are trustworthy. None of them, really pass the whole test as to the authenticity and the historical accuracy of them. So we kind of take it, Christ was a sage. From what I can draw from what I've read, the things that I really can be attributed to somebody who would say that, he was a sage, he was an enlightened being, who then got twisted into this character, which was a tool of the Roman Empire to control the minds of people where they were conquering, by appropriating, absorbing their local customs, replacing it with their own, and then making them loyal to Rome. And the best way, of course, to do that is to make them feel guilty for being, right? You're guilty, you're born sinning, and the only way to get out of that is to fulfill all the requirements that the church has laid out for your entire life, and your reward will be later. I mean, what a perfect system for oppression. And it worked. It worked so successfully that the Catholic Church has outlasted the Roman Empire by, 1,200 years? Very successful program they launched. It's then even gotten even worse and more virulent in the fundamentalist churches. So yes, guilt, it is how you control. That's the whole purpose. If I'm ashamed of my being, anywhere I can go to get a relief from that shame, I'm gonna go. Whatever I can do, I'm gonna do. And add on that the fear of condemnation forever, right? And well, you have got the golden weapon of manipulation and oppression, and that's exactly what it was. And our entire history comes from it. The United States was founded by these people, right? The Puritans, the Pilgrims, who were so extreme they couldn't get on with anybody in Europe. I mean, they had to actually leave. They were so reprehensible and annoying. Nobody was allowed to do anything. And those are our founding fathers. Those are our ancestors, right? Who came over on the Mayflower. And as I always like to point out, because we have these pictures on the Mayflower, and the happy, meeting with the natives, and celebrating Thanksgiving. And the reality is back at that time, water spoiled, right? Fresh water was a real big commodity. People just took it out of the rivers and stuff. And it wouldn't last. You couldn't get across the ocean with water. So what do they do instead? Beer. Because beer with the alcohol would keep. It wouldn't spoil. So these holy pilgrims would arrive in the United States shit-faced, hungover, and dehydrated. Men, women, and children. The grumpiest people on the face of the earth founded the United States. And then turned it over to power-hungry people who, committed genocide, enslaved people. I mean, this is the history of it. Guilt. I was raised with it, right? I was raised with that primordial shame, right? It's just inherent. Even with the Reformation and Luther and the like, it was still there. And then with the advent of fundamentalism, Southern Baptist and the like, it's even worse. Because it's a means of control. That's all it is. That's all it was ever intended to be. But I point this stuff out because it's nobody's fault, right? I mean, yeah, Constantine. They were laboring under the assumption that they had a right to be the empire of the world, which other empires, Persian Empire, the British Empire, and the U.S. Empire all have the same idea. That it's their right to just kind of take over the world. And so this was a tool for that. And so they were laboring under their assumption of the wonder, the glory of Rome, right? And so it was okay to do this. And it just continues on and on. Nobody really starts it. Where do these attitudes actually originate? Well, they just kind of happen. And then they grow over time, and they become more entrenched, and they become the official rules and regulations of the culture. They become, and so nobody thinks twice about it, because it's my parents did it to me, their parents did it to them, their parents did it to them, and on it goes. This is why things like this, it's so useless to be mad at somebody, right? Because they were just following their own programming. We have to look at the states of mind underneath, what underlies these kinds of behavior, and that's where you can pull it up from the root and truly transcend shame. Michael, hey Michael from Massachusetts, great retreat this weekend, you're so welcome. Dave, apologies for preempting your Ribhu Gita quote. No, man, it was a great introduction. It's a perfect segue. I was just delighted when I heard that. I went, oh. Because sometimes they question, is this the right quote? But when you brought it up, it's like, yeah. It's like being confirmed that I was on the right track. So thank you. Sonia says, I'm listening to you talk about shame, and next thing I know, I'm putting a lot of chips in my mouth. I guess this is one of those uncomfortable moments where I need to feel discomfort and allow it. Yes. Yeah. Brilliant that you noticed it, right? You noticed it, right? If you're completely unconscious, you don't notice these things. You're just eating the chips, right? And weird how it's like chips and fries and stuff. It's not like, celery, right? Or carrots. It's always this stuff that's completely not good for you. But you saw it, and you went, whoa, okay. The moment you see it, you become, you get authority back in your own system. And you can go, I don't think that's really what I need. And this is where we regain our power to choose wisely. This is the power of discrimination. Without the discrimination, it's just robotic. And I'm going to be talking about discrimination in my next class, which is coming up in 2 or 3 weeks. Not sure which one. But always seeking liberation. Thank you for naming it. You're welcome, Tatiana. Anna G, love the retreat. Thank you. So good to have you there. Oops. So good to have you there. Oh, did I lose that? Oh, Haron. Learned last days for the 100th time I do not need to have a conflict with thoughts or feelings. What a relief to just let it be and pass. Making the environment safe again for these energies. Beautiful, yes. Yeah, it takes a lot. We have all been trained to fight ourselves. It's just your thoughts. I mean, this is the incredibly funny thing about it. It's like, oh, bad thought, right? It's just your thought. And I shouldn't have that, right? Either I hate it, it's terrible, it's bothering me, or then I become spiritual, right? And then it's like, I shouldn't have that thought. Too late, it's there. Now what do you do with it? Nothing. You don't engage with it, you don't fight it, you see it, right? There it is, there's that thought. I don't really agree with that thought anymore, I've seen past it. So that's it. It shows over, and yes, it is a huge relief. And you feel that relief. That sense of relief is your body dropping out of its defensive posture. That's what it feels like. It's dropping the defenses. It doesn't have to protect you against a thought. Thought has no armor. It has no weapons. It's just a thought. And it only has effect if it connects up with something in us that believes that thought. If there's nothing for it to connect to, it just kind of passes right through. And that is freedom. So good, so good. And I learned last days for the 100th time, yeah. And it does take a while. It can take a while for it to really, really sink in, because the reaction to it, the defense against it, is reflex. It's the doctor doing this, right? It's reflexive. Keep deepening the seeing, and that will make a break open what appears to be almost a hardwired connection. But yeah, it's great. The 100th time, 1000th time, who cares? You're seeing it. Rohan, what to do when seeking turns to constant apathy and drowsiness? Stop seeking. Readjust the seeking. What is it that you are seeking? Right? Oftentimes what can happen is that I'm seeking to know myself, I'm seeking to know the truth so hard that we wrap ourselves up, tie ourselves up in a knot. Stop, take a deep breath. Remember, you've been invited to this path. Right? You didn't really choose it. And the burden of completing your seeking in realization is not on you. It is on the guru. That is the inner truth that started this whole thing in motion. We think, oh, I chose to be seeking. But in fact, it just happened because it was your time. As Rumi says, the power that brought me here must bring me home. And then loosen your grip. Right? For a moment, even let go of wanting enlightenment. Let go of your highest aspiration, self-realization. Let go of that too. And just be. Just be here and now. Because that is enlightenment. It's not a state, it's not a thing out there. It is what you find here when everything else has ceased. So, in a meditation, just let go of the seeker and just be. And they say, yeah, but I've got to get to, but let go of all of those thoughts that say there's any place you have to get to. Because if it's really the truth, if enlightenment is the truth, then it must be here now. The truth can't have a starting point. right? There's not truth, and then boom, truth comes into existence, right? It would end at some point, right? So it must be true now. So the only thing you're really dealing with are all of the thoughts that are telling you you are not that. Withdraw from all of those thoughts, and instead of being the seeker, be the finder, be the Buddha. Meditate from the end state. Meditate as the Buddha. Do that. And you'll find that all the pressure will start to come off. All of the stress, right? It's just the mind trying to get something, and your mind can't get this. It's trying to grab, right? And at one point in your life or in another life or something, it might have been about success or, great wealth or prestige or power or something like that. And that same kind of energy of attachment and the hungry ghost, greedy kind of thing, can turn its attention when you've started on the spiritual path, and it can feel that same kind of hungriness for enlightenment now. It's always this thing out there. If it's truly enlightenment, it can't be out there. It must be true now. I must already be that. And then put your attention there, away from the seeker. The seeking energy will continue and as long as it's needed. It's not a problem. But you just bring your attention away from the seeking energy, the seeking mind. Notice that you are aware of that seeking mind, and that awareness doesn't have to be sought. In fact, it's been watching the seeking and the seeker the whole time. That is the end of the search. And now you don't try to go the opposite. Okay, I'm going to stop seeking now. No more seeking, because that won't work either. Now you're just fighting it. Oh, here it is. It's really kind of the same thing sneaking in the back door. Instead, just notice it. Just recognize, right, okay, all of this is happening in front of the awareness. The awareness is here. It's effortless. I don't have to seek it. Matter of fact, it's the only thing I don't have to seek. Well, I think I'll just stay here. I like it here. And you will find that presence will begin to kind of dismantle the whole stress of seeking. And you'll find that you have been what you've been seeking for the whole time. So, thank you for that question, Rohan. Blue Black Flip. I love that name. Hola from Mexico. It has been a while since I joined live, but I've really been enjoying your previous satsangs, GP. Thank you. You're very welcome. Monica Baskar. Hi, GP. It's me, Monica from UK. For the last few weeks, lost interest in all the practices. Don't feel like doing any practice. Never happened before. So much resistance. Any advice? Well, yeah, inquire into it. Right? Inquiry really isn't a practice. Right? You're using the intellect to discern what's actually going on. Now, it could be that the practices you are doing have simply run their course and it's time for you to let them go and let something else emerge. It is possible. It's also possible that you're so close to a breakthrough that the mind is freaking out. and it's doing all sorts of mischief, all sorts of resistance. So what you don't fight it, don't fight resistance, just sit with the resistance. Well, look, there's resistance. I really don't want to do it. Look at that. Fuck off. I'm not going to do it. I don't have to do it. And you don't. That's freedom. You don't have to do them. You don't have to do any of it, right? As a matter of fact, you're actually not. Try to stop. Try to stop your heart's yearning for self-realization. You won't be able to do it. So just sit quietly with that sense of resistance. Just be there with it and notice it. And be really gentle with it. Be really gentle with that which it doesn't want to let go. But in your heart you do want to let go. And at some point it will all merge and it'll just start kind of settling into the background. This is what is meant by the story of the book of Revelation, where there's the war in heaven, right? God and the devil, right? Or the truth and the ego, right? That there was a war in heaven, right? This is what it really is referring to, this, right? And that eventually the devil, which is simply the adversary, right? The ego, that which is opposing, is cast out of heaven, down to the earth. And it says that now that the devil was walking to and fro all around the earth because he knew he had but a short time. So the days of the egoic mind are numbered. And as a result, there's a bit of churning going on. Just let it churn. Let it churn. Right? None of this can change who you really are, nor can any of it interfere with you realizing who you are. Nothing can get in the way of that. And so now you'll just see it as resistance in the system to what in fact is quite a significant shift that you are engaged in. That shift has to happen. It's destined to happen. And that the resistance will eventually just kind of yield itself up and let go. Whereas it was illustrated in the story of the Buddha's enlightenment, Mara, which is kind of the Hindu version of our devil, although much more interesting and colorful. He tempts the Buddha first with desire and then with fear. And the fear was just all sorts of, fire and spears and snakes and all sorts of stuff. And it's by the time, everything that Mara threw at him, by the time it arrived to the Buddha, it had all become just lotus flowers and a warm breeze. Because he was resolute. He said, I'm not moving from this spot until I have found the solution to suffering. And it wasn't, who knows whether there even was a Bodhi tree. The spot he was talking about was in here. It wasn't a place on the earth, right? He sat there, for 3 weeks or however long, he didn't go to the bathroom? Realistically, if we try to do it historically, it makes no sense. But metaphorically, he took this position. I am that. Everything else is a projection of the mind. And I'm not moving here until this is complete. And he didn't. That was the unmovable part, which is not a place. So this is just, right? You just remain that unmovable part. The earth will support you. Even though the devil's running here and to and fro all around the earth trying to mess you up. His days are numbered. Right? So feel into it, right? And it's okay to don't take on practices as a discipline. You won't be able to keep it up. Certainly not as a burden or as a mandatory requirement. Find the practice and the inquiry that makes you fall in love with it. You don't. When you fall in love, nobody has to force you to see your beloved, do they? You can't get enough of them. This is that kind of a very gentle emerging into the consciousness of yourself, and a very gentle dissipating of all of the conditioned patterns that have just been trying to keep you safe in the most clumsy and unhelpful way. That's it. It'll eventually come to the party. So just feel it. Feel the resistance, but feel it in your body. Don't even label it resistance. Just feel that energy running through your body. Even though resistance, all of a sudden it becomes something I have to deal with, right? Don't turn it into an entity that's fighting against you. There is no entity fighting against you. It's just feelings and thoughts. Take away the story and they will just move through. Just kind of like shh, like a current in the ocean or a wave on the ocean that just passed by. So wonderful. Thank you, Monica. Oh, it's so gratifying to see all the questions, people. It's so wonderful. So wonderful. Chrissy, angels and hearts and crowns. Very beautiful. Oh, 100%. Yay. Sound is excellent. Thanks. Oh, thank you. Confirming on that. On the sound. Hendrik, hi from Lake Constance, Germany. Hello to you. Hendrik, was a great and very helpful retreat. Oh, I was so glad to be able to work with you more directly. It is simply that idea of me. Somehow you think the me has to go away. The thought of me does. How can you go away? Where can you go? You are it, my friend. So good, so good, so good, so good. I love these. I love the retreats. I want you all there next time, and I'll do another one in the summer. Let's see. Good evening from Italy. Hello, Peter. And Robert Hill. Hi, G. Living health, eating healthy, exercise. Is that a question of willpower? Or is there something deeper? It can involve a little willpower, especially when, when we recognize that certain habits we've gotten into are not particularly helpful, right? And we begin to feel the impact of them. There's still the habitual energy of the nervous system that wants to just continue to do the way it is, go the way it was. And on top of that, let's not forget, the unhealthy food has been engineered in such a way as to make you want more of it and not actually nourish you. Because if it nourished you, you wouldn't want any more. So it's to kind of give you a temporary sense of the sugar rush, basically, followed by the need for more food. And even the flavors are artificial. So recognize that this is part of the deal, the world in which you're living in. So you have to seek out the healthy foods. And a lot of us were raised with unhealthy food. I mean, I can't believe when I look back at what I ate as a kid. I mean, it's all crap. There's a ton of butter on everything. It was all, a meal wasn't a meal unless it had meat. I ate candy bars and junk. And all of that was like regarded as okay, right? Nobody thought anything of it. White bread was healthy, right? And a salad was a wedge of an iceberg piece of lettuce. It wasn't like mixed greens and spinach and all that sort of stuff. Extremely unhealthy. And it took me a while, right, when I began to realize that because my appetite had been so trained into that I eventually, it took a process of consciously choosing a different direction. Now that is willpower, but it's willpower being guided by a higher understanding. It isn't just discipline, I shouldn't do this, because if there's no understanding, all the willpower in the world is not going to have any effect, right? Because what'll happen is you'll feel like you're depriving yourself rather than actually rewarding yourself, right? And we can't endure the sense of deprivation for that long. We eventually will have to give in. The only thing that will keep it from giving in is truly understanding the impact, the habit. In some cases, it's downright addiction. Sugar is a highly addictive substance, and it's in everything. And they even lobbied in the U.S. They lobbied Congress. If you notice on the nutritional, they don't tell you how the percentage of daily, allotment of sugar. They got exempt, so they don't have to put that on the label because the amount is actually so high it's inconceivable. It's like the average American diet. It's like about 100, 200 times more sugar is consumed than is actually needed. None of it's needed. No processed food sugar is needed at all. So yes, it's a re-education so that you know for a fact this isn't healthy. That knowledge and that knowledge will override what the body has become used to. Because the body, develops certain chemical dependencies for sugar. Sugar is an addictive substance, highly addictive, actually. And refined sugar is even worse. Don't forget, we know what refining is. It means just getting rid of everything except the pure sweetness, right? Cacao is a medicinal herb. It's used in teas and all sorts of stuff, right? But when it is, but when it is distilled and refined, you get cocaine, one of the most highly addictive substances on the planet. So that sugar is refined. It's like that, right? So educate yourself, become knowledgeable, and that will give you the power. It won't be mere willpower. There'll be understanding guiding it. And then a few shifts, you begin to feel the difference. You begin to feel more healthy, you feel more free, and you go. And then the reward mechanism of the nervous system kicks in and can sustain it over the long haul. So there you go. There's my little nutritional tip for the day. Alexandra in Ireland. Hello, Alexandra. All my Irish contingents. Hendrik says, so I am that on which everything occurs, in which, to which, and of which everything is made. It appears to you and appears in you, right? You are both you are the infinite space that contains all activity. You're the conscious awareness of that activity, and the activity is nothing other than you. It is made of the self-modulating of consciousness. So you are that, yes. You are that self. Hendrik was in my retreat, so keep at it, buddy. You are so on the verge. Gulsin in Turkey. Hello, sir. David and Elaine, we also enjoyed your radio show with Lisa on Ganesha at the weekend. Your description of the ego is very interesting. It's usually portrayed as a problem and the cause of suffering, but can... I've run out of... Oops, sorry. Oh, there it is. But can help us to navigate the world. The problem seems to be our soul identification and attachment with the ego as our true self. Yes, the ego is just a thought. We believe that thought to be a person, and therefore we create a person where there isn't one. The ego is nothing more than the collection of thoughts about I. That's all. That's all it is. And its function is to simply, function in the world, right? I show up as someone. Now, if I'm really attached to that someone I show up at, that same someone will be showing up all the time. Sometimes it'll work, some it won't. It'll try to manipulate the things. But if I recognize that I am not that, then the ego as a functioning of the nervous system, just functioning in the world, can take any form it needs to in the moment. It can become whoever it needs to be. And we already do this, right? You show up as an aunt or an uncle, or as a niece or a nephew. You show up as a life partner. You show up as an employer, an employee. You show up as a shopper in the store, or perhaps you're helping a customer in the store. All of these are different roles. We move between them constantly, and yet we believe there's this fixed thing called a self that is moving between them all. And that's the subtlety of it. There is no fixed self. You are simply the energy of life itself, and it's constantly morphing itself in response to various conditions. And when you let it do that, you find that there's just nothing but this beautiful, beautiful flow. Life is absolutely harmonious. You go in and out of identities at will. Right now, I'm the teacher, right? When this is over, I'm the dishwasher. I've got a pile of dishes here I didn't get done this morning, right? And then I'm going to become the set crew and strike the set, as it were. Put the lights away, put this screen back over there, and sit down and maybe then take a walk in the rain because it's drizzling outside. And then I'll be somebody else. Maybe I'll need to go get something at the store, and then I'll be somebody else, right? What consistency there is between is not a self. It's just a consistency in the pattern integrity that life is taking. So the ego isn't an entity that we have to fear or fight. It's not this, and that's what we do. especially when you start becoming spiritual, right? Or even it's like, oh, I've got my ego. If my ego weren't in the way, right? Well, that belief that there's an ego that's in the way is the ego. And it's a belief. There isn't anything in the way, right? You have literally created an entity out of thin air, and now you're fighting with it. You're basically trying to strangle a puppet, right? You've created Bugs Bunny, and now you're yelling at Bugs Bunny to go away. You created it. There is no ego per se. It is just a part of the functioning of life. As is mind. There is no mind per se. There's only the functioning of thought. And when you see that it is nothing but the flow of thought, and that thought very naturally falls into patterns. Some of those are conditioned patterns, some of them are useful. And now from this perspective, some of them aren't, so they can fall away. The useful ones are allowed to stay. But there's no self in it. There's nobody there. There's not ego as an entity. It is only a particular category of thoughts. Knowing that robs it of all of its reality, and it's no longer an enemy. It's part of life, where when I go one place, a particular aspect of my being will appear, and to the one I'm talking to, that will be who I am. And then I go somewhere else, another aspect of my being will appear, and I will talk to them, and they will think that's who I am. Right? And none will have the whole picture. Nobody can have. You can't have the whole picture. You can't have a whole picture of the infinite. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Yes, misidentifying the ego as myself, you then take on the obviously limited characteristics of the ego, because it's only a picture of you, it's not the real you. You basically believe the video instead of the one the video is being taken of. And when that belief is there, the person is born, the sense of burden, the sense of limitation, all gets taken on and felt as if it were real. And it's not. It's a completely generated experience. Self-generated. This is the self-modulation of consciousness we were talking about at the end of the retreat. So, yay, yay. Wow, not a lot of questions. Usually by this time it's just completely flooded, and I'm worried about getting through them all. So I'll just take my time here. This is nice. The awakened INFJ, Jonas. Again and again, I cannot seem to get a clear question to ask while in satsang. I was just very teary-eyed listening to you deeply, and my hands were playing by themselves on the guitar. Nice. Yes. So touching. Meanwhile, during the days in general, many questions, need for further guidance comes up, especially regarding the seeming degrading of this body. Dealing with immense amounts of symptoms for years now, and it doesn't seem to turn. The pain, the suffering is the teacher. While live, just as when with Muji on retreat, I cannot ask a question. Well, you just did, my friend. You actually just did. Because the real question isn't in the words. It's in the energy, the yearning in your heart, the yearning for freedom. What you're asking is, who am I, and how do I find that doorway to freedom? And you're in the right place. The doorway to freedom is it is into the realization of who you actually are. But this isn't an intellectual exercise that you have to do. It doesn't require that kind of questioning, like, and you could tell the difference. You know, the feeling of a mind question, which just wants to get engaged and have more information, and the feeling of the existential freedom question. Right? They feel different. I can feel your freedom question. Right? I don't need to hear the mind question, which is usually, and you can always tell, because the question is about getting knowledge, which is great. You know, I distribute a lot of knowledge because it's extremely useful and helps us keep from getting stuck in our patterns. Right? But the deeper question is simply, how do I go free? As you say, you know, you've been dealing with amounts of physical symptoms in the body. The pain, the suffering is the teacher. Now, what I advise you to do is don't philosophize. Don't turn it into a spiritual thing. The suffering is the teacher, right? Um, there's a lot of easier ways to get taught. Okay, so we don't, I don't disperse suffering here. Exactly the opposite. It's the antidote for suffering. And remember, suffering is simply how I react to it. Pain is a phenomenon we all experience, but suffering is the story I have about the pain. That is resistance to it, the idea that things should be different. I wish it would go away. And in the case of a chronic pain, I always recommend that people make sure you're eating correctly, checking it out. As a public figure, I have to do the disclaimer. I am not a doctor. Never was one. Never even played one on TV. So I have no credibility when it comes to that sort of thing. So I always say, just check it out. See if there's something structural that that can be dealt with. And if none of that pans out, then you're clear that there's some kind of an energetic thing going on. Also, make sure your environment is as toxic-free as it can possibly be. Eat well, exercise, all of that kind of stuff. Which I've seen pictures of you. You look healthy. You don't look like somebody who's sedentary. So then it comes to now this experience I'm having in my body and my relationship to it. Now the experience is there. It's happening, right? And that's all you have to say. It is happening. Don't even have to ask why it's happening. Maybe later, but not in the beginning. Just it is happening. Therefore, I acknowledge that it's happening and I drop my resistance to it happening. Now, simultaneously, there of course will be another part of you that's saying, I really would like to be free from this. And you acknowledge that too. It's not a contradiction, right? If it's, I got to get rid of this, that means you've made the desire to be free of it. One relationship is that you're attached to that now. And now you've got aversion, you've created a relationship with the pain of something that has to be gotten rid of. In that moment, you've created a conflict that is the essence of the suffering. So if instead you just simply acknowledge both, yeah, of course I want to be free of this, and I acknowledge that it's here, and it may even be here for a reason, for a good reason. And I'm just going to put myself right smack dab in the middle. This is the place of the heart, where everything is allowed, right? I didn't ask for it, but here it is. I'd prefer not to have it, but I totally accept the fact that it's here. And you're in now the position of the peacemaker, right? You've stepped out of the conflict, because the thing that sustains our suffering is our conflict with it, trying to get away from it, trying to make things different than they are. And then you just be with the sensation in the body. And even let go of the word pain. If you have a name for the particular symptom, let go of the name of it, and really use it as the object of meditation to become purely in this moment with the absolute experience of it with nothing extra added. No story, no narration, no resistance. There's that thing there that says, I wish it wasn't here. Fine, you notice that. But you give it your attention. And you use it as the object of meditation to peel away all the story about it, all the thoughts, all the ideas, to come to the pure experience of it. And in that pure experience of it, it will even cease to be something separate from you that has to be gotten rid of. It actually begins to merge with you. And you find that it's all myself. And eventually that will dissolve basically back into the essential bliss out of which you are made, the Satchidananda. And so that path, the focusing, really making the pain the object of meditation, is actually a doorway to freedom. It's what your real question is: how do I go free? This is the invitation to it. How's that, buddy? Seems so good. Sarah Sands, so good to see you. Happy to have you here. I'm so glad, so glad, so glad. Oh boy, questions are coming. I guess I shouldn't have said anything. um, okay, Faith. Hello, Faith. Hey, my sheik. I know someone on internet. He is becoming cold and not communicating with me as I wish. The situation happened with another guy before, and soon I cut relationship because I felt irritated as I did not get answers, and my mind gets crazy searching for them. I feel the same agitation with that new guy. I had this idea that life wants me to do something different. Or I am abusing myself. I know I'm attracted to this situation. I don't know whether it's a lesson or I should just leave. Please pray for me, my sheik. I don't feel safe here. I think it is a lesson, right? It is a lesson, but a lesson isn't like punitive, right? It's like I'm going to beat you up, right? Get this lesson. But anytime when you begin to notice that I tend to be drawn to this kind of situation, it's repeating, it's time to take a step back, right? And if this other guy is treating you that way, well, don't hesitate to cut him out now. Don't wait till later. Don't invest. Don't invest where you know there's going to be no return on investment. You'll find cutting it off earlier will be helpful, but it'll also be hard. Because in the attempt to cut it off early, you're going to discover all of the things you're really hoping to get from it. Now look, if you experienced as a youngster being demeaned as a woman, and this is acutely true for women, just not really honored by your father, maybe even abused, but at least you weren't significant, right? There'll be this tendency for the nervous system to want to recreate that environment where you basically get pushed to the side. You're second rate. You're a secondary citizen, and I know in your culture that you live in that women are secondary. Here too, but it's changing. And so there's kind of this natural diminishment, and in that culture, the men feel they have the right to treat women that way, that you owe them, that the woman owes him something, right? It's a cultural phenomena. It's ridiculous. It's way outlived its value, if it ever had any. But it's kind of all come. So there's a sense of trying. The nervous system wants to get the similar environment, not because it really wants the suffering, but because the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know, right? And so it knows this situation, it knows it can handle it, it knows it can keep you safe, so it tends to want to recreate it. And so if you start, if the first time you notice it begin to happen, you immediately cut it off, you're going to feel inside, wait a minute, this dance needs to go on for a while, then you can cut it off, and then we'll dance again. But you want to cut it off completely. You want a genuinely, a relationship of equality, of respect, in which you are visible and seen and really appreciated. That's what we all want in a relationship, right? So it is, the lesson is really just what I just told you. That this is the way the nervous system works. This is the way we get conditioned. It's not a problem. There's nothing wrong with you. This is just how it happens, right? This is the way life works. Understanding that, we can take charge of our inner world, and we can literally choose a different path. Okay? But it's not the kind of choosing like the free will. Oh, it's free will. It's like, no, the choosing is being governed by wisdom. You're simply seeing this is the wrong way, this is the right way. That seeing governs. And then you start consistently heading in that direction. And there'll be some resistance, maybe even some backsliding. Your mind will say, you're going to cut it off, your mind will say, yeah, well, maybe he's not that bad. Yeah, he could come around. Really, give it some more time. Don't give it any more time. Don't. You know it's happening. You know in your heart it's happening again. Cut it. Don't let the nervous system perpetuate itself. This is standing in your authority, right? And if that even means that it's dry for a while, right, and you're getting nothing, don't worry about it. Eventually that energy will just begin to groove in you, and you'll find yourself being drawn to the kind of quality companionship that you really want, and they will be to you. Right? You'll be, at that point, the energies will match. The energy of self-respect and caring and honoring will match. So how's that? And I will pray for you, even more than I just did. So beautiful, beautiful. This area of our personal relationships, romantic relationships, love relationships, has undergone such tumultuous turmoil over the last 50 years, really. I mean, it used to be so clearly set. This is what a man does, this is what a woman does, guy's guy, girl's girl, that's the way it is, And all of that's just completely fallen apart. It's not culturally imposed anymore. The strict division of responsibilities between the masculine and the feminine, which used to be so clear, it was simply based on the physical body type. The women had babies, and the men had upper body strength. And so, emotionally and physically, it served two different functions that together would make a successful species, which it did. Right? We're all here, extremely successful. But it's no longer imposed by nature, it's imposed by the culture. There are no jobs in our modern world that can't be done equally well by men and women. And in fact, in my experience, when I was a consultant in corporate America, I found that the women managers were better than the men because they had this capacity for inclusiveness, whereas men, it was very hierarchical. And they were actually more successful. So, in many ways, the world that men created made ourselves obsolete within the very thing that we created. But all these old energies are still there. Our cultural expectations, just our primitive drive, our love and need of each other. And so we're redefining everything right now. We're completely redefining it. And the best advice I have for somebody who's in or seeking a romantic life partner is discover yourself. Discover your own value and your worth. And don't compromise it. And then you'll find somebody who's doing exactly the same thing, and there'll be a compatibility of energy that has the chance of literally lasting a lifetime. You could. So thank you for that. Chosen One said, GP, just came in to say hi. Glad you are doing okay. I am. Thank you. Let thoughts flow, says Chrissy. Yes, agreed. Robert Hill, I feel like my questions have dried up and any answer keeps me satisfied shortly. No, I'm left to face myself, my pain body, my habits, or now I'm left to the devil inside. I have kept myself distracted so long. Yeah. Yeah, there's a point at which, kind of you're indicted by your own insight. And it's okay. It's okay. It isn't, the habit of distraction is something we all have to deal with. It's going to come up. The mind has all sorts of different interests, right? And in the beginning, non-dual inquiry or spiritual practice is one of many interests, right? And so it's competing for bandwidth, right? It's competing for brain time, right? What's going to get my attention? Over time, as you begin to realize that the cause of suffering and all of the things that have been really weighing you down, the spiritual inquiry and practice becomes more significant because you see now that it's the antidote for suffering, until eventually it becomes the only desire there is, to know myself and to realize infinite freedom becomes my only desire. And that just eliminates all lesser desires, which will never lead to that place, and opens your heart fully to there's nothing but that. It's the only thing that matters. And that'll have just the most wonderful gentling effect on your whole life. It's not like everything else will just become meaningless. It'll get put in its proper perspective. There's time you need to be with your family and do things with them. There's just, time you have to do stuff, or your work, or that sort of thing. It won't interfere. You'll see it as just, these are the concessions I need to make right now. But it doesn't shift my primary desire, which is for freedom. But then the little distractions, the sidelines, to go watch something else on Netflix or yet another YouTube video, that stuff will fall away. And when you watch something, it'll be because it is serving that higher calling of freedom, right? Because freedom called you. None of us chose it. We all want to choose safe and confined, right? Freedom said, no, it's your time. And it is your time. Truth Loops gave me an ear. I guess that means you're listening. Jay said, I like how you mentioned the mind because it becomes more refined in this knowledge. I wanted to ask you in the retreat about friendship, but then the answer came to me that compassion is all I could show, maybe. Yeah, well, what is friendship but the meeting of two hearts that recognize their similarity, right? That kind of merging of hearts, that you see yourself in someone else, right? And they in you. And so you are communing with an aspect of yourself that you see reflected back to you. And this is the beauty of all relationships. Aspects of ourselves become revealed in relationships that don't become revealed any other way. They don't come out because they're not needed. But all of our relationships call forth from us aspects of ourselves that we didn't even know we had. And the more free you are, the more you're free from conditioning, the more natural that is. And of course, you're going to meet other people that are doing the same thing. And what happens is a celebration of life. Friendship loses the sense of it being a dependency, and it becomes an intertwining intersection of interests and love. And you know that everything comes and goes, and so it'll be precious. Some may last a lifetime, but nothing lasts past that. So, let's see, ask what retreat about. Then the answer came that compassion is all I could show. What is compassion? Right? Compassion and wisdom go hand in hand. Compassion is a sympathy or empathy, but with wisdom. It isn't just, oh, gee, that's really too bad. It arises out of having felt our own suffering and transcended, at least to a certain degree, our own suffering. We are sensitive to the suffering of others. We are no longer cold to it. We are no longer unempathetic. We're no longer disconnected from the world. Right? We're very much present in it. And that opening of your own heart makes you sensitive to another's heart, and that's compassion. That's all it is. You're not trying to fix them, you're not trying to change them, you're not trying to condemn them. You want to bring your presence to them. And if you have transcended a degree of your own suffering, it makes it possible for you to transmute some of the suffering of others, or perhaps show them the way how. And if none of that you can do, then just be present with them, so they're not alone. And let them feel that silent love. And that's the essence of all friendship. And in that sense, everyone becomes your friend, even the most reprehensible character. And we have plenty of them running around these days. But they too become your friend. Love your enemy as yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. Right? Very simple commandments. Not hard to live up to, but love your enemies as if they were your friends. And you find you don't have any, that the enemy is completely a construct of your own mind. Because you take this position, that person takes a different position, and if I really hang on to it, that position, and I'm not willing to flow with it, then they become my enemy. I made them that. They aren't. You don't have any. There are none, unless I create one in my mind. So don't do that. Don't do that. Don't create them stuff in your mind. Oh, it's so amazing. We're creating the world. The world you're walking through is of your own making. You just believe it's out there and it just kind of happened to you. You don't realize that everything is the relationship with it, and the experience of everything is the relationship we believe we have with it. And that is completely your making. So let that relationship be compassion and love, and everyone will become your friend. Not necessarily your comrade, hanging out with you and that sort of stuff. But nobody will offend you. Nobody will take anything from you. You won't expect anybody to be anything but what they are. And you'll live with peace and happiness. You'll be a peacemaker. Jonah says, yes, yes, great. Lily says, do the words I love you really communicate anything? Well, they certainly can, if you feel it. And, you can usually tell if somebody says something like that, I love you, I love you, baby, or anything they say. That was really good. Man, I really appreciate that. All of those things, you can feel whether it's just words, or if those words are carrying a true vibration. If those words are carrying the word, or if they're just imitating, right? So it's what's felt, right? And so yes, it can communicate something, right? But there's got to be something there to communicate. And if it's felt, you'll find other words to use it as well, and actions as well. I love you is much better expressed in action, right, than in words. If you do something that says, I love you, boy, that message gets in, right? Now it's lived, it's right there, it becomes undeniable. Whereas words are dubious, right? I might doubt. But if the words and the actions are congruent, well, I don't doubt now. So, thank you for asking that. Oh, Jay continued, later on, I will find different friends with the same interest. I just don't feel an interest for the current things we do or talk about. Yep, this is probably a normal part of Wicca. Yes, I mean, it's normal anything, right? You don't hang out with the same people you hung out when you were 15. When you make a transformation in life, all of the accessories of life, which includes friends, clothing, and stuff you do, and interests and entertainment, well, they fall away with it as well. So yes, it's part of the awakening, which is moving the entire energy system to a different level, a whole different relationship with everything. And so you won't feel very interested, There are some people I know I have some conversations with, and, and that's it. I had the conversation, we'll talk about something or other, something meaningful, not even this, right? Something that's, I don't know, sports or something, which I'm not really into, but, just kind of small talk. And, when I used to work in places, go out afterwards for a beer with the guys or something, there was silly talk going on, often about girls, and it was fun for what it was, but there was no heart connection there, right? It was just companionship in the moment, and that was all it was, and that was all it needed to be. And it was good. But then there are those you will connect up with on a much deeper level that are walking this path, it may be like the folks in the Sangha, the folks who are in the retreat, the folks that are in my Facebook group, right, who are all on this path. There's a place where you can be seen, right? And we all need the Sangha, right, for those times when I go, God, am I doing anything right at all? And we all face that. And then you see everybody experiencing the same thing at different levels of understanding. And there's the people who help you, and the people, and the people you can help. And you just kind of get the whole picture, right? The universe itself is supporting you in this awakening. It is solitary, and yet it is not. It is also quite communal. So, nice. Jonas, oops. Scooped ahead again. Shoot. Gosh darn it. Where'd it go? Oh my goodness. Jumped ahead on me. Oh, okay, here we are. Good. Yes, I am sure this is energetically based from a young age, trauma, chronic stress that has not yet left the energy system, nervous system. There's no doubt. Other facts might add to it, but it is not the core and base of it. It is energetic, like you say. Answers are absolutely, utterly perfect. So present right now. Thank you. Beautiful. I do find also that EFT is extremely helpful. Extremely helpful, helping the nervous system make the adaptations that it needs to make. Because that's what it is. You're creating an inner environment that is different than the one it's used to. And after a little bit of back and forth, it will eventually adapt to that environment. So you're just creating an environment for the nervous system to adapt to. You know, it's like taking a dog that's been abused and you bring it into a loving home, and it'll be weird at first, it'll be awkward, but eventually it will adapt to that environment and harmonize with it, and the abusive patterns will leave. So it's the inner reconciliation. It's the creation of an inner space, that inner place of safety, and the rest just happens on its own. When the nervous system knows it's safe, it knows what to do. You don't have to tell it. Eveline, I'm almost recovered from fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome with tons of mind-body work. It's taken a couple years. There's a whole community recovering from chronic pain, chronic fatigue, etc. Did you add to that? Yes. And it can take that. You know, I've seen instantaneous spiritual healings. I've seen things happen extremely quickly with EFT and the like. But I also acknowledge that sometimes things have to happen the way they happen. And it can take somebody some time to let their whole self really surrender to the process. Sometimes we've had so much trauma, so much shit from the past. The nervous system is extremely cautious about opening itself up. Whoa, wait, I don't know. And it can take body work. It has to have some body work involved when there's traumatic material. That's why I use EFT, because it's simple. It's massage, qigong, yoga can do it, but there's also sorts of body work stuff, acupuncture, acupressure, and all sorts of body work, cranial sacral thing that I don't even know about, but there's all sorts of them. Really, it is to tell the body it's okay. And then it will very naturally begin to discharge the energy of trauma. And the fatigue that had been constantly drained, and it's fatigue because it's in the nervous system is in defense mode. As the defense mode starts dropping, the energy returns to its natural state of the expressive mode. And it's okay if it takes time. It's okay, right? It'll take as long as it needs to. The important thing is that the transformation be deep and permanent. I don't want a quick fix if I relapse a month from now. I would rather take the time, one step at a time, so there's no relapse. I see you saying mind-body work as well, so you've covered it beautifully, just beautifully. And I'm glad to see your emerging freedom from it. NM. Hello, G. Does every soul have a unique resonance vibration to it that always remains? A soul signature, perhaps? Well, every form has a unique energy about it, right? There are no two forms in the universe that are identical, are there? No two snowflakes, no two leaves, no two leaves on a tree or blades of grass. I mean, really, no two grains of sand. When you think about it, the universe, that God does not repeat herself. So there is an energetic signature to the form. But the form, remember, what we might call soul, that kind of that sense of the individual jiva, right? The individual being, right? Is actually the signature of the one soul. The one soul can write its name in an infinite number of ways, and one of the ways it does that is GP, there's NM, Jonas, David Elaine, Chrissy. It's all the same energy manifesting itself in in countless forms. So the particular resonance of this form, right, that will leave with this form. It's inherent in it. You can't separate it. It's not there's like this energy and the form, and they're two things, and at death the form falls away and this energy is there. They're one. And the animating principle behind it does not have, you are its signature, right? Without you as a signature, it has no identity whatsoever. It has no knowingness to it. It has no signature. So when that signature is being written, when you write your own signature, right, it's different every time, right? I can't do it the same way twice. I can't even make it legible, right? But that signature isn't you, is it? It represents you. So the individual soul, what we call a soul, is not an individual soul or an individual being or jiva. That's the Hindu name of it. It is the manifest of the one soul. One soul, thousands and thousands and millions and billions and countless number of faces. The amoeba, the ant, the badger, the otter, the galaxy, the sun, are all the signatures of the soul. That has no resonant frequency of itself, because if it did, then it would not be infinite. It would become something. And so it resonates itself, modulates itself to make the infinitude of form that we see around us. And that infinitude of form is always the vibration of the essence. And so it'll change. That signature will disappear in a new one. We'll be continually morphing to the point where you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. I mean, I've gone through all sorts of different phases in my life, right? But it was not like all of a sudden there was like, one day I'm this, next day I'm that. It was always just this constantly gradual transformation. So that I'm both constantly changing, because I don't bear no resemblance to myself from 50 years ago. Except there's some resemblance, right? But there's also something that's absolutely the same. That which is absolutely the same is the one soul. That which is shifting is its signature. And you'll see that, in fact, each of the signatures are so interrelated that there's only one signature. And that is the universe, the one song. So, hope that answers it for you, NM. Thank you, GP. Love and blessing. Love and blessing to you guys, too. Thank you, David, Elaine. Chrissy, that's amazing. Did you do acupuncture? That helped my mom with fibro. Oh, some people helping each other out. Wonderful. Jonah said, the mind-body work seemed to be the way for me, too. I can feel it, energetic work. And with the higher true wisdom that Ji just brought about, together with EFT and some Qigong conscious breathing, And somehow, I think I missed one from you, didn't I? Oh yeah, just perfect. Thank you, Guruji. And somehow, more and more I find myself in acceptance of whatever is to happen will happen. If I were to leave the body, so be it. So much resistance in life before, still coming up, but moments daily of amazing surrender, just letting go of all these ideas, of my self-importance, so to say, yes. Thank you for sharing. I will keep simply flowing and be conscious when I am not. Thank you all. Oh, beautiful, Jonas. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, do the mind-body work. Absolutely. Absolutely. I had a fracture in my shoulder from lifting weights, and I was just a little too heavy. My muscles were ready for a heavier weight, but my bones weren't quite, and went. What do you have to do? You have to leave it for a while. You have to take care of it. A little physical therapy. You just gotta. You just take care of it. It's not. It's people want to say, no, you should manifest your perfect health. Well, if it's really dire, there's a certain amount of surrender, and I have found that in surrender, some people get, excuse me, spontaneously well. But I don't set anything out as a goal anymore. We're not going to pray for this, trying to make something be different than it is. The prayer is to completely surrender this moment, surrender it to God if you like, and then say, whatever you need this to be, it will be. Your wisdom is beyond my wisdom, and I just totally surrender to this moment. As Anthony de Mello put it, he said, enlightenment is total surrender to the inevitable. And at that point, you've turned your life over. You can let go. It's not your doing anymore. This is the true meaning of faith and genuine surrender in the religious sense. The bhakti path. Bring to that spirit, that religious sentiment of surrender, you bring that to the Vedantic wisdom, and just nothing can stop you. Faith says, thanks, my sheik. Oh yes, go ahead. I thought the lesson was learned to accept what is. Yes, I was a codependent because of my father. I was treated as a second-class citizen. And unfortunately, I lost my inner compass. Well, not completely, because you realized that you'd lost it. If you completely lost it, you wouldn't know you lost it. Yeah. Yeah, when I talk about accepting what is, I don't mean accepting our maladies, right? I mean accepting yourself. We start with the acceptance that, yes, I have this repetitive pattern. And we also accept the fact that it doesn't work for your life. Right? This isn't now, allowing, and this kind of acceptance is not a resignation, right? It means that, okay, this is what it is. I accept this is the way I am. It's not true. The moment you say this is the way I am, you've frozen yourself. You are not like that. You have the freedom for anything at all. Nothing is binding you except these repetitive patterns that we believe are ourselves. Once I see they're not, I am free to make any life I choose. And that freedom will eventually expand and remove from it all obstacles. But that will not be making the life I want. That will not be the ego trying to create its material utopia. That will be a liberation of the self towards self-expression. You may not even know what that life is, right? But it will be truly yours. It will be whatever this particular form was destined to be. It'll be realized, and it'll be realized fully, right? By finding the inner liberation. So when you see this pattern, I've got this pattern with men, this happens, okay, nip it in the bud, right? Okay, it used to happen, it doesn't anymore. I am much more valuable than that. I am worthy of their actual attention. Not stick me on the side and make me second class. I am not second class, right? But you trying to do that makes you second class. You're demeaning yourself. You're demeaning manhood, right? By not just being upfront, right? What is it you want? Right? Just be totally present. I'd really like to start a group for men again. My goodness. Faith. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So, yes, the lesson was really the honoring of yourself and your womanhood. The goddess that you are. The real essence of womanhood is the goddess, right? The life force incarnate, right? Your entire body is giving and nourishing life. That is the feminine form. That's why the earliest shrines, the earliest statues for the gods were female. They were the mother goddess. And they were not in specialized caves, they were in all the homes. The very first carvings discovered were the goddess. The recognition of the feminine nature of existence, the feminine nature of creation. And that the male serves that. How about that? Huh? As Joseph Campbell put it, woman is life, man is the protector of life. The original creator, the void from which everything came, is the womb of the goddess. Honor who you actually are. Honor what it is that this form is about, and then go beyond it. I lost my inner compass to satisfy other. I don't know how to stand for myself. You're doing it right now, my beloved. You are doing it right now. You are standing for yourself. Just the awareness that this part of you got crippled and you're having a really difficult time saying no when you mean no and yes when you mean yes. That awareness itself is the liberation. Before you didn't see it, you just did it. Now you're seeing it. That seeing it will set you free. That seeing it will eventually rob that habit of its energy of continuity and replace it. And it won't take you long before you finally say, no, enough. No. This doesn't work for me. For no other reason. If it works for you, fine. It doesn't work for me. Thank you, but no thank you. You'll find that power, my dear. You will. I swear. I understand others and give their need more importance. I think I understand compassion wrongly. I thought I should accept him and stay with him. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Compassion does not mean you become resigned, nor does it mean you become somebody else's tool or pet or whatever. You're not there to satisfy the needs of somebody else. They have to satisfy their own needs. You're there for companionship, to share, co-equals, right? An interdependency, not a codependency. So, yeah, that's a misunderstanding of just accept him the way he is. No. You don't have to do that. Understand the way he is, right? And if in understanding him, that is acceptable to you, that it's honoring of you, right? And that he is bringing out the best in you, right? Otherwise, move on. There's 4 billion men in the world. Believe me, you haven't run out of choices yet. You haven't run out of options. Jonas, we'll book a one-on-one with you very soon, GP. Finally, the economic factor and the money I have left each month, especially last year due to the physical illnesses, are rather limited. Understood. Just, yeah, well, there's plenty of free stuff out there. I always start giving stuff away, and people I'm working with now are saying, gee, you've got to stop giving stuff away. Make sure you're paying your bills. So anyway, good. I look forward to hanging with you a bit, Jonas. Hi, GP. A few threads ago, you talked about friendship, and I can relate. Yeah. It's from Robert. But this, the non-dual, the true self, is the only thing I truly value, beyond my own valuing. Can't put it to words. Everything else, intellectual and whatnot, is dropping off. Just fascinations of the body concept. And it's fun and playful, yeah. But there's no joy, truth, and being in any of that, no. Distractions mainly, really. In contrast to non-duality and time and nature, it's never wasted. Yeah, and that happens very naturally. Right? When you see that this non-dual inquiry reveals the truth of all things, it isn't just remedial, although it has a remedial effect or a therapeutic effect. It isn't just philosophical, although it's deeply precise intellectually. That it is quite literally the genuine explanation of everything. It is the understanding of being itself and all the phenomena. It is what science is looking for, the theory of everything. And it explains absolutely everything from the point of view of consciousness, not the point of view of matter. Consciousness is fundamental, rather than consciousness as a derivative of matter. Turns the whole thing on its head. This is the universe is consciousness knowing itself. And the entire universe is the self-modulation of consciousness. And it's quite inevitable that becomes so clear that it is the answer to all problems. I don't have to seek an answer of a particular problem. I just bring it back to the universal solvent, the universal solution. And it solves itself. I'm listening with my 10-year-old daughter. Wonderful. I love that. That I feel. Thanks. Fantastic. Good, Robert. Sarah, I just popped on by there and just jumped ahead. Damn, I hate when that happens. Radical responsibility. Yes, radical responsibility with radical self-love. It's beautiful. You know exactly when to make a concession, exactly when not. When to say yes, when to say no. When it's time to say, okay, we'll do it your way this time. And when it's time to say, no, not this time. All of that innate wisdom of knowing exactly the right thing, the right time. That is the radically awake responsibility. Not at all burdensome. Very natural. Chris says he's blessed with old souls for children. Wonderful. Wonderful. Robert Jones says everything happens from us, through us, for us. Yes. Yes, everything. Comes through you, comes to you, comes through you, is for you, and in fact is you. The activity of the universe and you cannot be separated. This is the essential message of non-duality. They're not two. They're not two. They're one. Let's see. Truth Loop said, the ear was just to let you know I'm loving listening to these words of burning grace. Burning away and refining anything that is not original to me. Oh, beautiful. Thank you for that. Now I know that meaning. You can go back to symbolic language if you like, but thank you. That's beautiful. Subugo, or Subugo. Hi, GP. Nice to see you again. Nice to see you. Chrissy says we are never truly alone. No, we're not. Ever. Only the sense of a separate self has a feeling of isolation or being alone, because it starts from the point of view, the premise that it is separate, and inevitably that would lead to a sense of isolation, of loneliness. But the truth is we're not separate. We really are one with everyone. You are one with everything, not just connected, right? Because connected still implies two. The universe is one thing. One single thing. The single manifestation of the infinite allness, the infinite emptiness, the infinite beingness. It is the one made manifest. So it is a single functioning. Just the way your body is a single functioning of just an inconceivable number of little beings, right? Little one-celled beings. Right? that make up every organ and everything else, these little one-celled beings, living out their own life cycle, their own purpose, and the like. The whole universe is like that. The universe is your body. When you know yourself as the self, the universe is your body. And you are perceiving the universe from simply one point of view. That's what your individual human life is. The self perceiving itself from a particular point of view. And everybody's that. That is your experience. But you're the actual self, right? On which all of this is registering. You are the self. Jonas says, lovely, children today are messengers. Children today are different. Yeah, there's a dramatic shift in consciousness taking place. Thank God. Just, yes, EFT, out of everything over the years that I studied and tried, it's the best. But your EFT is so much greater than everything I've come across. At the risk of sounding self-serving, I'd say, yes, it is. The reason why is because of this non-dual perspective that is sitting underneath it. Because I know who you are. I'm not just trying to fix something, I'm trying to reveal you. And out of that perspective arose what I call inner reconciliation. That there's nothing wrong with you. We're simply helping the nervous system. It doesn't need to be fixed. It just needs a safe environment in which it can make the corrections it needs to make, to make the adjustments that it had to do in the first place to conform to an environment that was not safe. So you become safe, and it works. It happens automatically. So so that's why the way I do it works better than, and there are others. There's some I love, and some I've even stolen some of their ideas, right? And I steal with impunity when it comes to the healing modalities. Right? But the difference is I just got finished teaching the coach training for EFT. The difference is simply the state of mind and the state of heart you bring to it. If you start from the premise that there's nothing wrong with them, that they're absolutely okay, they're pure, they're whole, they're in their original innocence, then the tapping is simply allowing the energy system to come to see that, to let go of its assumptions about the nature of reality and step into the actual nature of reality. But if you don't know the nature of reality, right, what you're going to do is just make kind of a different version, maybe a better version, right? And of course, any kind of improvement in functionality, you know, if my life becomes more functional, it's great, right? I mean, who's going to argue with that? But obviously it's limited. But if I recognize that I'm actually not limited at all, and no matter what appears, no matter what the functioning is, I'm greater than that, well, that's a whole different level of liberation that tapping can support. And so that's my take on that. And Jill Kelly, EFT saved me years of post-awakening misery. I am now free of the separate self. I now know my true identity as infinite awareness. I think EFT should be a requirement for all non-dual students. Beautiful. Yes, that's right. When I first met Jill, she had experienced the awakening. She knew herself as she was, but I could not bridge this gap between what I was seeing, what I knew of myself, and the experience I was having. And this is where inner reconciliation steps in to make the post-awakening sadhana and to make it as short as possible, so that sense of freedom from the separate self isn't just an idea. It's literally embodied in the entire energy system. Faye says, thank you for your words. I love you, Sheik. Appreciate your prayer. You're very welcome. Very welcome. Nobody else has called me Sheik. I didn't even really recognize what it meant, but it's quite a name of honor coming from the Muslim tradition. So I'm deeply honored by that name. As Penny calls me, Sifu. Many of you know it's a term in martial arts, but it's simply it's like an honored teacher. Sabugo, when I draw my attention from everything that can be attended to, I notice kind of where I'm aware of only existing. By abiding there without thoughts, knowing I exist, is that the I am? I am that I am? Yes, my dear, it is. That's it. It's that simple. It's nothing, it's not rainbows and unicorns, or the heavens parting, or Moses, parting the Red Sea. It's just this simple, undeniable, still small voice. I am, and I know that I am. And you even say it, I am, right? Is that the I am? Yeah, it's the I am. So when everybody does what you did, come back to this place of only existing, what will they experience? The I am. The very same one you are. I am that I am. Not this one, not this one, not any of this. That I am. I am. So yes, that is it. Because I have a lot of the non-dual videos, a lot of talk, there's a lot of stories about the enlightenment experience of masters and that sort of thing. People get the idea that it's some kind of Hollywood spectacle, right? And it's not. It's incredibly ordinary. It's this simple realization that, well, wait a minute, I am. I've gone as far as I can go. I can't go beyond my own being. I'd have to be in order to go beyond it. So I've gone beyond everything. What's left? Just me. Could it be possible that that is it? That this is what I've been looking for? The mind will say no. Oh no, that can't be it. Not nearly as interesting. Where's the special effects? Where's Avatar, right? Right? There aren't any special effects. If it's a special effect, isn't that just another experience you're having? Who's having the experience? The I am. That is you without anything extra added. It's that simple. And notice how quiet it is, how effortless it is, how peaceful and still. You don't need to do anything to get it. You can't get rid of it. It is you. This is you. Now just sitting with that sense of I am, it will eventually completely reveal itself to itself, which is you. And all of the thoughts about who we used to think we were will simply fall away. And you'll be nothing but that. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with me. Chrissy, learn from every day. Yeah, the children. Oh, lovely. These two seem to be an orchid and indigo child. Seem to resonate. Anyway. Yes, all you have to do is love them. They came batteries included. They will, the development of them will happen all on its own. Don't even categorize them as orchid or indigo child. That's, again, the mind. They're actually bigger than anything our mind can put on it. Let it be a discovery of the rare uniqueness of each one of them. I don't even like to put those labels on it. It's good, it's fine, it's clear that there's some special stuff happening with the children, but let's not label it. Let's just really let them transform us and the consciousness. Jonas, so much joy, so smiling so big, reading your comments. Beautiful Sangha, such a direct teacher. So happy. Sabuga says, is that my point of cognition, the knowing being, who I am? Yeah, absolutely. That's the point, isn't it? Right. So, what's still happening for you is the mind is still trying to find someone. The idea that the knowing and the knower are one and the same. That being and knowing, that knowing is being. There isn't a being that knows. That point of of cognition is the irreducible self. There's not a self who knows. There is only the knowing, and that's what Sat Chit Ananda means. Existence, knowingness, and peace, or being, consciousness, and bliss. Sat Chit Ananda. They are one. So you simply say that that is who I am. Now, your mind will struggle with this, right? But little by little, that'll just kind of fade into the background, because you don't need to know it with your mind, and your mind can't grasp it anyway, because it's pure non-dual. It's purely not two. If you don't have two, the mind can't do anything with it. It has to have two. That's what it does, is manipulate symbols. Compare this to that, contrast this. That's all the mind does. So this is beyond the mind. And when you're in that state, when you're in that place of simply recognizing the point of condition, you are out of the mind. You have stepped beyond. You've stepped into the vastness of the infinite. Now just notice it. Can you find limits to it? This knowingness, this boundary. The moment you find a limit, yeah, but what about, you'll notice it's a thought. Oh, it's just a thought. If I find a limit, I'm aware of what's beyond the limit. Oh, okay, so put that away. Can't find a beginning, can't find it. Just really explore it. Be there, be present with it. And there's the place where you really pose the question, who am I? Who is this I? Now you're asking right at the very source of it. And that I will reveal itself to itself. And you will find that you are that. And that's the moment of self-realization. It can happen gradually, it can happen suddenly, but it will happen. Steffi, namaskaram ji and everyone. When and how does the consciousness of babies evolve? And when do they experience themselves as separate from the mother? Thank you. Well, it's different for each one. I actually remember vividly, because I was in Seattle when my granddaughter was born. I decided to move there. So I lived with them for a while, so I had a very close relationship. I was with her every day, and taking care of her. And I remember one day putting her in the car. She was probably about, I don't know, around a year or so. I can't remember the exact time. And she was looking at me. And it was all of a sudden, it was for the first time, it was like there was somebody there looking back at me. Something had come online in that moment. And we both knew it, right? Now, I don't know, it's impossible to describe what that is, right? But eventually, some things happen, disappointments or disillusionment, the inevitable kind of thing, which makes us have a sense of self and other. For me, it happened in an instant because of the abuse, because I was tied into bed. The first time that happened, and I tried to get out of the bed, and I was crawling out of my crib, banged my head on the side. It was screaming, the lights and stuff, and I was very unceremoniously put back into the bed. And I was tied into bed for the next 4 years. Not all the time. I mean, it was right, but every night they would tie me into bed. But I remember vividly that moment. And in that moment, I remember vividly there was the sense of separation. I was alone. I was not going to get any help. It was all on me. I remember it vividly. Now, because of an extreme abuse like that, it can happen like that, which it did. For most people, it doesn't happen like that. It's a series of things. That the nervous system begins to recognize that it just can't do certain things. And in that space, there's this sense of other, right? And that sense of other then immediately begins to identify, what am I? I'm the body. And there's the growth. There's the emergence of it. Exactly when that happens, it's hard to tell. I watched my granddaughter. For the longest time, she would refer to Audrey. That's her name, right? Audrey wants this. Then little by little, the word I started showing up. But she was probably in her in her third year before that became consistent. So somewhere in there, it happened, right? Gradually over time, right? And of course, that's the birth of the separate self, which will eventually, get more solidified into a sense of identity, and then hopefully Grandpa will be around long enough that she can come to Satsang and join us. But her father's already on this path, so I'm not worried about her. I surrender, says Chrissy. Good. Very good. Let's see. Satsang is life. I could enjoy the space for hours. Yeah, me too. Mutant 3594. Gee, I have observed that watching movies and TV shows can sometimes break the immersion in reality. Have been on a break since the last few weeks, and I already feel my non-duality feeling getting stronger. It's better to avoid media altogether and just read books then. I don't make hard and fast rules. There's no vow of poverty or vow of celibacy, no vow of abstinence from anything. You have an innate wisdom. You realize that for the most part, the vast majority of the media is banal and vacuous, and its only intent is to get you distracted enough so they can feed you some commercial message. They have no interest in giving you anything of value, anything that's going to make your life better. They just want to sell you something. Now, there are exceptions to that. There's lots of good documentaries. There's lots of nature shows and things where, genuine people really, with a real passion and love in their heart want to share. And I find those things to be useful and uplifting. But it is also something that even the good stuff can become a distraction, right? Because the mind does not want to go in this direction. It does not want to find its own boundaries. It's, leave me alone, I'm fine. But it's dark and nasty in there. I don't care, it's familiar. Leave me alone, I don't want to go. That's just the way it is. And we just have to become really wise at seeing when, in fact, we're being distracted and when we're just enjoying a little moment of entertainment, which is quite okay, right? There's nothing wrong with it, right? I don't want everybody, sitting in the corner chanting all day long, right? Have a life, have friends, have a girlfriend or boyfriend, do stuff, right? You got a family, have a family, enjoy it. And then the time that is really solely yours, use for the thing that is most important for you, the inquiry. What you found is that for a while, this other stuff was more important, right? The inquiry was becoming burdensome or flat, right? And something went over here, all right? Because we're not going to hang out. You can't force the inquiry like a discipline, right? I've got to do this. If I don't do this, I'm a bad, whatever. That'll never work. And so then you just notice that something about it, and that feeling of something about it, it's losing interest could also be the mind trying to throwing a rock in the bush because you're getting close to a breakthrough. But then you find when you watch some of the stuff, you go, this wasn't really very satisfying. It's like, this isn't it. And of course, then your attention naturally goes back to the place where you did feel that sense of, there's something here. And then you go back. And if you vacillate again, you know what? You can keep coming back. The truth's not going anywhere. God's not going to abandon you. It's like, it doesn't matter how many times the prodigal son wanders off, Dad's always waiting when he comes back. Right? The doors are always open. The truth is always here for you. And so this is kind of we're working out our own salvation, so that it's not a matter of I'm doing this even to get the great result. It's doing this because something inside of me just has to. It just has to. Anaji, may I ask, where in the world are you? And once COVID is done, it would be great to attend a retreat in person. wish you could come and wash your dishes so I can listen to you all day. I wish you could come wash my dishes too. That'd be great. If you could cook, all the better. I'm in Seattle, Washington, right in the city of Seattle. About 1 block away from me is Elliott Bay, the Puget Sound, and the ocean. And it's a beautiful little place. You know, I have a little garden out back. It's actually an atrium. It's an apartment building, so there's other apartments around here. As you can see, it's completely private. Yeah, nobody can see in. And this is my studio. It's also my living room, and it's also my kitchen. I live it's a studio apartment with a small little alcove for a bed. So I live very, very simply, and I'd love to have somebody cook. I'm happy to trade my yapping for dishwashing. And I am too looking forward to live events once again. I know I'm going to be doing one at the Krishnamurti Center. They sponsored the retreat I just did virtually, and I did one live there. We're planning on another one, and then COVID hit, and so we couldn't do it. It's also very much on my heart to go to spend some time in Europe, because I have many, many, many students in Europe. Probably as many, maybe even more than the US. So that's on the docket too. And, you know, just putting on a live event is not easy. There's a lot of work, and it actually requires a lot of upfront money, right? I keep everything free and very reasonably priced. But in order to put on an event, I'd have to have a real chunk of cash, because you have to rent places in advance. You have to make all sorts of relationships with hotels, and there's all sorts of stuff that has to be done. And if you're going to get a space, you've got to put a deposit down on it months in advance. So there's a lot to the planning of events that is really beyond me. So I just have to get people to help. But it's something I definitely want to do. In the meantime, we meet like this. And in the live classes I do where we can get on Zoom, we can actually, talk face to face. So, you mentioned earlier that you wish to have retreats like in Europe. If you go to Sweden at some point, you could live freely for as long as you want. Hope these restrictions come to an end. I want to see Scandinavia. I so want to see Scandinavia, Sweden and Denmark, and that whole area up there. It'd be lovely to take part of live events, even watching it through the internet. It was recorded with you and other beings in the room or outside. Yeah, they're great too. Yeah, I'm surprised. The first time I did a retreat online, I was actually surprised at how well it worked. I wasn't expecting it that well, because compared to in person, it's a very, very different experience. But they've worked really quite well. I'm very happy, pleased with it. Chrissy said, I did that for years, no TV, just YouTube videos with truth and knowledge. Definitely helped. Thank you. We're all unique. Didn't want to label, but they sure are something special. We're all special. Yeah, I can see it in my granddaughter too. Yeah. Yeah, there's just a different energy, a different power, an authority, right? That I don't remember, right? That little one is in charge. She will not be suffering into the Me Too stuff. I can guarantee. It's pretty impressive. See, Triangle Zero, teaching about enlightenment. Teachers always say, one consciousness, there's no separate individual. But whereas where's your proof? Isn't this part of the teaching? Just another concept of thoughts. Well, it really depends on the criteria that you offer up for what you will agree to is truth. We have to agree with the groundwork by which we're going to make a proof, right? If I take the position of classical analysis, which is the scientific model for truth, right? I analyze it, form theories about it, I test it experimentally. If the theory fits, I can hypothesis. If it's consistent and it always works and it's reproducible in different places, the hypothesis becomes a theory, and now this is accepted as a truth, right? Now, here's the problem. You are not an object to yourself. So the subject-object relationship or classical analysis doesn't apply when you're simply trying to directly know yourself. And all the information you got is not direct experience, it's all hearsay. It's what somebody else has perceived about you. It's what somebody else tells you about you. It's their ideas about you, right? Which you then take in and you say they're true, right? So when the non-dual teacher comes along, it says, all of that is fine as far as it goes. But to discover who you are directly, your experience of you and not somebody else's, you are not capable of stepping outside of yourself and examining yourself as an object. You can't do it. So it's a completely different mode of proof because it's totally subjective. So you have to start by looking at your own experience. What do you know directly, without anybody having to tell you, without needing any confirmation from anybody else? So it's not hearsay, it's direct knowledge. And there's only one thing that meets that criteria, and that is, I exist, I am. That is an undeniable direct experience you're having. Now, from that point, starting with that, I begin to look at the nature of my actual experience without referencing something that has turned me into an object. I'm not an object to myself. I'm an object to somebody else. So I will, the best I can get from them is their perception, their perspective. Worst, I get their judgments. I get their distortions and their colorations. What's my experience of myself? Now I'm examining consciousness as consciousness. Consciousness is doing the examining now, right? So now it's not intellectual anymore, right? I'm not trying to prove it according to some theory or some discursive argument. I'm now using reason and logic, but I'm using it on myself, from the point of view of myself, my experience as the very thing I'm trying to study. And because I can't study me as a thing, I have to study it completely here. Now, from there, I start and going, okay, what is the actual nature of my experience? I am. That I know for a fact. Right? What about this? Am I this body? Well, I believe I am this body. Everybody told me I am the body. And that consciousness somehow is this is a derivative, right? It's an emergent property of matter. And therefore consciousness is just a little functioning in the brain. But if I actually dig in intuitively, you know what? There's something's not right about that. That's an assumption. What is this point of cognition that I'm experiencing all the time? And you'll actually hear a lot of neurologists now, a lot of scientists saying, you know, we just assumed the consciousness was made of matter, but the fact is we don't really know. And qualitatively, it is completely different. We have nothing on the periodic table or the standard model that would imply self-aware consciousness. So it becomes this very mysterious thing. And there's just the ongoing assumption that it must be made of matter, everything is matter. And this is where you run right smack dab into what is your experience. What you experience is not matter or brain, you experience consciousness. Now, they explain consciousness from this materialistic point of view. I say, the only one who can answer that question is you, because you are it. You are the consciousness. Therefore, you're the only one that can answer that question. They have no more authority than you do because they're in the same boat you are. And they have to look at it exactly the same way. And that's simply looking to yourself. And non-dual inquiry is that process by which you simply continue to look at yourself. This is who I am. This is who I experientially know myself as. And then you drop all the thoughts. Everything that came externally, okay, I can't accept that as a fact because it's somebody else's perception. It's hearsay, secondhand. Okay, I can't accept that. What do I have left? And at this point, a very different kind of world opens up. And at first, you simply accept the possibility that maybe consciousness is what I am, right? And that there's not even, and when I start talking about no separate individual, right? Again, it's from this place of consciousness. I'm aware of thoughts about a separate individual. I'm aware that I believe in a separate individual. But if I'm looking at my actual experience, I can't tell whether what I'm experiencing is a total illusion, a hallucination. I have no criteria for knowing. Right? All I know is I am. So I explore that sense I am. And I see, does it have boundaries? Does it have a beginning and an end? And when I really do that, I find that it doesn't have boundaries. And from then, it's such an easy step to go, well, if it doesn't have any boundaries, then there's only one of them. There's only this one consciousness, just like there's one space. This is the non-dual is a very systematic, very scientific approach, but it's based on it is based on a subjective rather than an objective. It is not classical analysis. It is the subjective looking of consciousness looking at itself. And only consciousness can see itself. So that's why I would say that, and that it's just not another concept. You can eliminate every other concept, every one, but you cannot eliminate you. You exist. That's not a concept, is it? That's a fact, right? So then the question is, okay, what is it that exists now? What am I? And now you are in the ballpark of the kind of inquiry that will reveal to you what all the non-dual teachers say. Thank you for that question. I really, really appreciate it. Was that a tree? Falling across the window behind GP. Oh, I didn't see it. It could be a lot of stuff. It was very windy today. Some stuff could be blowing around. Thank you, everything, for your teachings, your presence. Thank you, my great master. You're welcome, Ava. Oh, my goodness. It's after... it's been 2+ hours and I started late. You guys are up late there in your Truth Loops. Let's hit the like button, please. Oh, yeah. A few likes. That'd be great. Thank you, GP. I do love you. I love you too, Tatiana. Wonderful Faith. Thanks from the bottom of my heart. Today you set me free. I'm in receiving tap on your inner goddess for the last month, and now you have made me the last push to fly. Yeah, discover that. That's the beauty of experiencing life through this body. You get to experience the wonder of this body, which is the embodiment of the goddess and the God, right? Which is the initial parting of the self into many to allow for the experience of love, so that love is experienced, so that you don't have music without a song, you don't have love without the manifestation of love, and it splits. And the primary split was the masculine and the feminine. They are actually two sides of the same coin, so they are one. So isn't that kind of a split? So celebrate the experience you have in whatever gender it is. Triangle says, thanks for the answer. You're very welcome. I hope that was satisfying for you. Yeah, I do want to be intellectually precise because this is something required. Right? This is just accept what I say, right? This is not faith or some belief system. This is a very precise and very rigorous and very relentless inquiry. So I so appreciate you wanting to have that answered. Penny, it must have been windy then. Oh, it knocked my plant over. Oh, that's what it is. Yeah. It knocked my plant over. That's when, whoa! Okay. Is consciousness God living through us? Consciousness, God is another name for consciousness. Yes, same thing. They're the same thing. The self is God. In the West, when we use the word God, in the Abrahamic religions, because the Abrahamic religions are not, they're not like the Eastern religions. The Eastern religions, God is immanent in everything. Everything is the manifestation of God. In the West, God is a creator. It is a separate being, right, who created you as a separate creation, and now you have a relationship between the two. So when people say the word God, in the West, we can't help but think of a being rather than beingness itself. The Eastern mind doesn't have as hard a time with that because they're used to that. Everything is God, right? And the mystics in Christianity, the mystics in Judaism, the mystics in Islam, which are the Sufis, if you read it, that's exactly what they say. Only God can know God. Only, right? So that which recognizes consciousness, that recognizes God, is God. So consciousness, pure awareness, God, the self, I am, Buddha nature, Christ consciousness, they're all different names for the same obvious experience that you're having of I am. Your conscious awareness, the point of cognition, it's God looking out through those eyes. And it's God seeing. It is God that's hearing my words. But not God in the sense of the personal God like in the West. It is the God is immanent, that it is the animating principle of all things. Thanks, Chrissy G. You skipped over some questions after Face Goddess comment. I did? Maybe I didn't see him. Thanks for the answer. Must have been windy. Sometimes I don't get all of the messages. I have noticed that. So, I just love how direct you and Muji are. Rupert Spur as well. There's so much heart and natural, spontaneous poetry to it too. Love. I agree. That's drew me to Muji. I love Rupert. He's got the same, those of us who teach it from the heart, that it isn't just the strict Advaita. Francis Lucille, Adyashanti, Gangaji. To me, these are genuine teachers that teach the whole of non-duality, and not just the Vedantic part. Lily, is there a certain kind of inquiry or practice that you find to be particularly helpful for an ongoing regret? Yes. For a particular thing like that, again, adjustments. I actually have a pillow under my feet. Because I have to sit here for 2 hours. I have a pillow and a little blankie here. Yes, for a particular thing that's bothering you, ongoing regret, I want you to notice something. That regret is a feeling, right? There's a sensation in the body. There's an emotional kind of pattern going on, right? So let's just take that at face value, that's there. That feeling is there, right? And you call it regret, and you want to get rid of it, right? No, this is really, really important. Because the moment you want to get rid of it, you've created a conflicting relationship with it. And the moment you do that, it becomes this entity that has power over you. So instead, let yourself just allow it to be there. Just feel that feeling of regret, right? And just be present with it. And then even drop the word regret. Drop the idea of course, it's perfectly natural for uncomfortable feelings for us to not want to have, not want to have uncomfortable feelings. So you notice that that's there, but you don't so identify with that, I want to get rid of it, I don't want to have this discomfort, that you create the conflict. So yes, of course, it's very natural. I'd rather not be feeling this discomfort, but just acknowledge the fact that you are. Okay, it's here. And now and when you do that, you step into this middle place that I call the peacemaker, where you are just okay with both sides. You can even do it as I'm speaking right now, Lily. And just let yourself feel it. And little by little, just be really present with the feeling, not trying to get away from it, not trying to change it, not trying to make it anything other than what it is. Even dropping the name of regret or remorse or whatever it might be. And just feel it as sensations in your body. Right? And you're just allowing it to be there. You're just saying yes to whatever happens to be there. Just do that. And then watch what happens. Now, and every time, because the habit will be, God, I really wish this would go away. Whenever that happens, go, yes, of course I do. But I also give it permission to be here. If it needs to be here, it can be here. And you just keep withdrawing back to the place of the peacemaker. You're just allowing. I call this the yoga of allowing. You're just taking that yogic position, right? You're holding that position, and you're letting the whole nervous system stabilize around the fact that you are no longer taking sides. You don't have a bad guy and a good guy inside anymore. They're just two aspects of you. And that act literally embraces them to the point where they can start to do this. And just literally watch what happens. When you completely let go of siding with one side and wanting to get rid of the other, when both become aspects of you and therefore acceptable, even lovable maybe, the reconciliation will take place. Try it. Let me know how you do. Let me question. Okay, Gangaji and Ajay, I take part, weekly part. You and Muji daily. Well, Muji is my teacher, so it's not hard to understand. Okay, says, I observed that movies and TV shows break immersion in our reality. Oh, I thought I answered that. Is it better to avoid media altogether? I did answer that. Oh, all right, I'll just do it again. Yes, they can, when they're a distraction. Right? Sometimes they can be very beneficial. Obviously, you're watching Muji or one of my satsangs. Hopefully, it's beneficial, right? It's not a distraction because the whole point of it is to keep you focused on who you are. But a lot of it isn't. A lot of it is just trying to get your attention so they can sell you stuff you don't really need. And sometimes it's just avoiding our feelings. We just have to become wise enough to make that distinction, to say, in this moment, I think I'm just trying to avoid what I'm feeling now. But recognize this, which I didn't say last time. Nothing can break your immersion in reality. You are reality. If attention is distracted, you are still here, the conscious awareness, aware of the distraction. It can't get out of your view. Nothing can get out of your view. And all we're doing is bringing the attention back to realize that awareness is there now, it was there before, it'll be there no matter how distracted the mind gets. It's the mind that gets distracted and not myself. And it wants to draw me into its little drama, but I'm becoming too wise to it. And I'm just not going there anymore. So to just blatantly say, I'm going to avoid all media, you might be throwing out the baby with the bathwater. Use it as an opportunity to gain more self-awareness, more self-knowledge. I happened to notice one day, I had a TV, I even moved from California when I moved to New York in '94. And I noticed, I moved to 94, 2 years later, in 1996, I realized I had not turned the TV on the entire time I'd been there. I said, I guess I should just give it away, which is what I did. And I haven't had it once since, right? Of course, that was prior to all of this that's available. So I've seen YouTube and I've seen all these other, all the other stuff. Obviously, I'm on YouTube, right? But it can fall away very, very naturally, just as with the interest. Don't make anything into a rule you have to follow, right? Because anything like me, if you make a rule, I'm going to purposely break it because I'm just a rebel. I just hate to be told what to do, right? So I'm surely not going to do it. But if I'm given the choice, I go, okay, what's the best thing, right, in this moment? Am I avoiding something right now? Or is there something I need to be with here? Or is it just time for me to just forget about stuff and watch a dumb show? Because that's okay too. So, I think I got it that time. Kakwenda. Thanks, GP. Thanks to you. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you, Lily. Geez, my bad. Just walking my dog outside. So sorry, Gucci. It's okay. There was a point I'd forgotten to give you before. So, yeah. There's a point I forgot to give you before. So it's okay to bring it back up again. But at this point, I've been at it for, 5 hours today? And I'm starving. I think it's time for me to get something to eat and settle into my evening. Wash my dishes and then settle into my evening. So thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you so much. As always, it is just so gratifying for me to consistently get this many people showing up to talk about this. Enjoy your late lunch, early dinner. Have a wonderful evening. Oh, thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much, says Evelyn. You're so welcome. Thanks from Jonas. Thanks from Mutant. Thanks from Triangle. Thank you. Goodbye to Triangle. Thank you so much. Great. So, it's really a blessing for me as much as it is for you. Right? We are all in this together as the truth unfolds itself, as it reveals itself to itself. Right? So, thank you all for being here. Love you. Namaste.